Check. Check. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise to Grind Morning Show. The big shoe dropped last night. The Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell decided to finally part ways with Johnny Morton, and I have to say it was the right choice. Last night I tried to do an impromptu live. It did not go very well. We lost audio, so before I go any further, I just need to make sure y'all can hear me. Just put that into the chat that you got me loud and clear. But anyway, I'm not surprised that Johnny Mo is gone. But you know, Dan Campbell, I'm hanging on to something here, because Dan Campbell had said something during his presser the other day, where he said, you know, maybe we didn't move on from personnel soon enough, or move players around, whatever he was saying there, and that's sticking with me because. And the other thing that's sticking with me is this whole thing about going back to what they were doing in 22 or 23. You know, what they were doing at the beginning of this, you know, trying to build this team. What did we get away from? I know we've chatted about it a couple of times over the last couple of days. But that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how you lose your identity when this team, all they talk about is identity. All they talk about is culture. All they talk about is the players in the room and getting the right players through the draft and getting the right players through free agency and, you know, not disrupting the apple cart, right? How in the hell do you make that mistake? I don't know. But what I do know is there are 7 coaches, 7 coaching vacancies right now in the NFL. There are several opportunities for the Lions to bring in their next offensive coordinator, guru, if you will. Someone has to step up, and there are there's some options, but it's kind of slim when you look at this with a narrow scope. And I think it'll broaden up a little bit. But I'm just going to put this out there right now. Do not be surprised when David Blough is your next offensive coordinator. And like I said in the chat, I love it when people don't know who is who in the league. Now this name for many people seems to have come out of left field. It's anything but. This dude knows what he's doing. David Blough does have a clue or two. You don't have to be an amazing quarterback in the NFL to be an amazing offensive coordinator, right? What's the old saying? How does it go? Those that do, and those that don't teach. Is that what it is? Something like that. Essentially, if you can't do it, you teach it. I think that holds a lot of weight in the NFL. You have former players that played at a high level that have become coaches, but not many. Look around the league. How many of those coaches right now, whether they're offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, positional coaches, or even head coaches or general managers, how many of them were the best ever at their position during their time in the league if they happen to play in the NFL? Ask the question and then go answer it. Not many. Not many. Was Aaron Glenn the best ever at his position? He's a pretty damn good corner. He really was, but he wasn't the best ever. How about Dan Campbell? Was he the best tight end in the league? Not even close. Not even close. But what he was trusted. What he was a hard worker. What he was everything that he wants this team to be. Gritty, nasty, get after it. You know, balls to the wall, snap to whistle, through the whistle. So when you look around the league, there's a lot of coaches that have not played at the highest level in the league. And when you look at JT Barrett, right? Was he the best quarterback in the league? Nope. Sure wasn't. So there's a lot of coaches that you could bring in that have extreme intelligence. I mean, players like David Blough are, extremely cerebral. And I've got a few things. So that's what we're going to go through this morning. And I threw an extra picture up on the thumb this morning, Chip Kelly. And we'll talk about that for a moment. I know a lot of what you are already going to say is, well, Will, he's already hired, right? He's already the offensive coordinator for Northwestern. Since when has that stopped anyone from leaving their position to go to the NFL? Contracts get broken every day. Trust me, I know. I know all too well. So let's get through the rankings of the best options available today. This doesn't mean this is the best options available tomorrow or at the end of the week or next month. But I do expect the Lions to have this wrapped up here over the next couple of days. I don't think it's going to linger on, past the postseason. I would really be shocked if it did. Quite simply, if there's someone that you like right now and you've got 7 other teams or multiple other teams looking at, options, you don't want to let it hang out to dry because you might be hung out to dry if you don't wrap this guy up. And we'll see who they bring in next. What I'm happy with is I'm happy with the Lions doing something different this year. I'm happy with the fact that they've gone out immediately to find options. They didn't wait 24 hours. It was a smattering of hours, and we already have an option in the house. All right, here we go. We'll get into 5-6 names that I have listed today. We'll start with that this morning. Offensive coaching options for the Detroit Lions. We'll be right back.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, so there's several coaches that were fired over the last 24, 48, even, 5 months ago, but 24 to 48 hours. There's been several coaches. We'll start with John Harbaugh. He was fired from the Baltimore Ravens after 18 seasons and a Super Bowl title. The move followed an 8-9 finish on the season. They missed the playoffs. I was a bit surprised by this one. I think that Lamar Jackson's probably a bit surprised by this one. John Harbaugh is a hell of a coach, man. Lasting 18 seasons with one team is not normal. Most of these coaches get 2, 3, maybe 4 years if you're lucky. You look around the league, there's coaches that have been fired after one season this year. And next up is Kevin Stefanski. Cleveland Browns, he was fired after a 5-12 season. Despite 2 previous Coach of the Year awards, the team cited a lack of sustained progress for Kevin Stefanski. He was fired on January 5th. John Harbaugh, January 6th. Pete Carroll Las Vegas Raiders, fired after just one season and a 3-14 record. You know, I had this idea in mind that Pete Carroll was probably brought in to just kind of lay the groundwork and kind of get that team organized. He's, 77 years old or whatever Pete Carroll is right now. He definitely needs to just go off and enjoy retirement. Smart coach. It's probably time to hang it up, coach. Fired after, again, just one season, 3-14 record. The experiment, as they were calling it, with a 74-year-old, not 77, 74-year-old coach ended abruptly when their season ended, January 5th. And then there's Jonathan Gannon, Arizona Cardinals, fired after 3 seasons in Arizona. He had a 3-14 record, 15-36 overall. That is not what you're expecting from a head coach trying to turn a franchise around. I wouldn't say it's all his fault by any means. I would say that, with all these teams, the Raiders are a rebuild. The Cardinals have never really put anything together. The Browns, well, they've always been a trash heap, and they're trying. They're trying to put it together. They couldn't even manage their quarterback situation. And I'll speak more in depth about these coaches here in a moment. Then you have Raheem Morris. He's out as the Atlanta Falcons head coach. He was fired on January 4th. He was the first head coach after the season ended to be fired. I mean, within a matter of an hour or two after the game, he was fired following back-to-back 8 and 9 seasons. I don't think it was deserved, but he's out. Then there's Brian Daboll. He was fired during the season, November 10th. New York Giants let him go in season, fired after a 2-8 start. He finished 20-40-1. Now, keep that name in the back of your hat, if you will. And the reason why I say that is there's a connection with Dan Campbell. I'm not totally out on Brian Daboll. I'll tell you what I think about him in just a moment. There's Brian Callahan, Tennessee Titans. He was fired October 14th, another in-season firing during the 2025 NFL season. After a 1-5 start to his second season, 4-19 overall in Tennessee. I don't know that you can blame him for everything that's going on in Tennessee. Quarterback situation just didn't work out. Hasn't worked out. It needs time. It needs time to marinate. And you probably could have done something a little bit different, but hey, these are the coaches that have been fired up till today. And then you have coordinators. Coordinators that have been let go already. Washington Commanders mutually agreed to part ways after the offense ranked 22nd in points and yards. Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, was let go on January 6th. Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, was also let go on January 6th. He was fired after the defense allowed the most total yards in the NFL. It's a game of numbers. It's a game of stats. And if you can't be on the right side, well, you're going to be out the right door. John Morton, the biggest shoe to drop last night. Offensive coordinator, or whatever the hell his role was the last 8, 9, 10 games. Fired on January 6th after just one season. Dan Campbell had taken over play calling. It just didn't work out. And I'm going to cash in those receipts right now because what did I say? From the very beginning of the season, I got trashed. I got heckled. I got made fun of. I was told that I was wrong. But what did I say from the very beginning about John Morton? If you're going to coach in the box, it's probably not going to work. It's not going to work for this offense, an offense that has been consistently having an offensive coordinator on the sideline, Jared Goff having the ability to communicate. I didn't see it working, and it didn't. So I'm going to cash in those receipts right now, and all of you that decided to jump on my back and talk that smack, well, you were wrong. Next up, you have Steve Wilks, defensive coordinator for the New York Jets. He was fired in season December 15th. He was fired after the team fell to 3-11. I think that this was an Aaron Glenn panic mode. Got to save my ass. Someone has to fall on the sword for me. Obviously, that was Steve Wilks. Look, the defense has plenty of good players. Sauce Gardner got traded. And I don't see how you can blame Steve Wilkes for everything when this team is rebuilding. Maybe there was, confrontation between Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes. Obviously, we know Aaron Glenn is a defensive coordinator, defensive-minded. Probably didn't see the vision was working there in New York. But Aaron Glenn is going to get a second season, so he has to get it right this year. And I do expect the New York Jets to competing this year. I said that in the beginning of the season. You give Aaron Glenn 2 seasons, and he'll be competing. I said Bears 2 to 3 seasons, and they're competing this year, so they're a little ahead of the curve. Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator, New York Giants, let him go November 24th in season, dismissed 2 weeks after head coach Brian Daboll was fired. And then there's Chip Kelly, Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator, November 23rd. He was fired in season after a 2-9 start to the season. He is out. He then was hired almost immediately by Northwestern University to be their offensive coordinator. Now, I said to keep that name in the back of your hat because contracts can be broke. And if he wants to leave, he can leave. If he wants to go up, and coach in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, he'll be able to do that. I'm not saying he's the right fit, but he is an option. Tom McMahon, he was fired as special teams coordinator in Las Vegas on November 7th in season. He was fired early in the year as the special teams struggled all season long. Now, up next, what I'd like to do is get into the rankings here. And my rankings, or at least my thoughts and thought process, kind of broke down each one of these options, or at least the few options that I have for offensive coordinator for the Lions. And I think in total we have, 3, we got 4. We have 4 right now. There might be some options coming out of the college ranks still. We'll see, but typically a lot of those college coaches get locked up right away and pretty early compared to what the NFL is able to pull off because, a lot of the teams in the league, they wait till week 18. They wait to fire everybody, and then, college has already moved on. They're already going through the playoffs. The teams that didn't make it, they're already moving and shuffling, personnel around. So I'm going to start off with the guy that I said to kind of keep in the back of your hat, Brian Daboll. Now, I wrote an article about Brian Daboll probably within a couple of days after he was let go. And there's a connection here with Dan Campbell. If you notice, or if you remember, the last year we did training camp practices with the New York Giants. And Dan Campbell had nothing but good things to say about Brian Daboll. As a matter of fact, don't forget to sign up on DetroitFootballJournal.com. If you sign up right now, we're going to give you a 6-month membership for free. And if you are a member of this channel through YouTube, you will automatically get the unpaywalled version of DetroitFootballJournal.com. And if you would like that, see, I don't get your emails through YouTube. What you need to do is email me at mailbag@rockdown.com. Tell me that you're a member. Obviously, I'll verify it. Give me your YouTube handle and give me your email that you would like to use for DetroitFootballJournal.com, and I'll get you upgraded. That's going to take a couple more days, maybe a week, before I can get all the emails compiled, and then I'm going to do it all at once. So keep sending them in, and if you're a member right now, even if you join today at the lowest tier, you will be upgraded to the unpaywalled version of DetroitFootballJournal.com. It's going to be a great place for you to get a lot of my draft work. A lot of my draft work will be paywalled because it takes so much time, and I don't want everybody stealing all my ideas. Not that they're the best ideas, not that they're the only idea, not that I'm better than anyone else. I just don't want people stealing my stuff because I see it quite a bit and hear about it quite a bit, and I've had it. So it's going to go on a paywalled version. Now, when I wrote this article on Brian Daboll, which I'll post here in the chat, so if you want to read it later, or this will be your opportunity right now to go ahead and sign up. When you open the link, there'll be a box that says insert your email. You insert your email. No credit card needed. Please don't put a credit card in. Don't pay for anything. because then I got to do refunds, and that's costs everybody money and time. Just sign up for the free version. That's all you got to do. If you want to support it, you can support it and pay. That's up to you. But why I said that Brian Daboll could be the next offensive coordinator for the Lions was put into this lengthy article. But there was a few things that I felt that he would be good at in Detroit. One, he has the proven elite quarterback development with Josh Allen. Now, things didn't work out so hot in New York with Daniel Jones, but you can't dismiss his work as an offensive coordinator with Josh Allen. In New York, yeah, of course he's involved with the quarterback, but that's not his only job, right? As a head coach, you have every job, and you can't just spend all this time on one player. So I'm not going to give the total meltdown there in New York with Daniel Jones. I'm not going to give all that fault to Brian Daboll. I think that he still possesses the elite ability to work with quarterbacks and develop quarterbacks, but also with his offense. And if he's dedicated and fixated just on doing offensive coordinator stuff, the guy is pretty damn smart. You look at the Buffalo Bills' offensive, success. He transformed Buffalo's offense from the 23rd in scoring in 2017 to second in 2020. It took 3 seasons, but they did it. In 2020, they were second in total yards, second in scoring, top 5 in efficiency metrics. He won NFL Assistant Coach of the Year and consistently produced a top 10 offense in yards, points, and efficiency. Now, for Detroit, obviously we have the championship aspirations. We have a championship roster. We have elite explosive weapons. He has everything that he wants and more in Detroit. All he has to do is come in and design an offense and push the button. That's all he has to do. And I think he can do that. He has an aggressive mentality and creative play design. He's been around the league a long time, but his offenses in Buffalo ranked among the league's best. After a couple of seasons, he was in the league's best. Deep passing attempts and yards per attempt, number 1. Pre-snap motion usage and creative defensive confusion, number 1. Innovative RPO concepts and play action designs. Red zone efficiency and third down conversion rates were very high for Brian Daboll. Those are 2 of our biggest problems. You just witnessed it against the Chicago Bears this past weekend. We get to the red zone, and it's like the brakes get applied. And then the parking brake gets pulled. And then Jake Bates runs on the field. That's a recipe for disaster and losses. That can't happen with a high-powered offense. Brian Daboll knows how to work around those things. So for Detroit, the aggressive, creative approach aligns perfectly with Dan Campbell's offensive mentality, and it would maximize the Lions' explosive weapons like Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta, which sounds like he's going to be healthy for this next season. So take a look at that article and go ahead and send me a comment back. Tell me what you think. But now let's get into the reasons today that I feel like he could be an opportunity. Number 1, his archetype as an offensive coordinator is the aggressive spread option. Josh Allen whisperer, right? The quarterback developer. So I think his best fit really would be with a team that is maybe a little bit more young. I would say that the Lions are kind of in that second stage, maybe third stage of having a young group. A lot of young players still reside on this roster. I would say overall we're fairly young. Doesn't mean we're the youngest roster in the league, but we have a lot of young players and a lot of players that'll be around this team for a long time. So if he goes to a team that has youth, physically gifted quarterback, which I would say that Jared Goff is gifted, maybe less physically. He's not a running quarterback. We know that. But I don't think that Brian Daboll needs a Josh Allen to be successful. I think that the case, for the fit, despite his struggles as a head coach with the Giants, he remains one of the best offensive minds in football. His work developing Josh Allen, obviously, I've said that several times now, in Buffalo, is the gold standard for modern quarterback coaching. He runs a very complex, aggressive, downfield passing attack, which is what we want. It's what we deserve. It's what we have the players in the building to do. JMO needs to be a threat downfield, and it needs to be used more often. But I think that this, aggressive downfield passing attack will put a lot of responsibility on the quarterback, and I think that Jared Goff has proven that he can do it, and he can do it at a high level. Daboll's strengths, in my opinion, he designs offenses around the quarterback-specific traits, which is another key to unlocking the whole thing. You can't just fit a round peg in a square hole all the time, right? You can't do it. Daboll doesn't do that. He wants to make sure that whatever he's building and creating and trying to get his team to do, that it actually fits, that it fits their traits and their mold, rather than forcing a system of failure. He's very aggressive, creative. He's excellent at creating easy completions to build the quarterback's confidence, which at times we desperately need. Just being able to get the ball out there, in the field of play and watch your playmakers make moves. Why could he be a better fit in Detroit? Well, I think, he's not a system coach, really. He's not a system coach. He adapts the scheme to the players. In Buffalo, again, he ran the quarterback power in deep shots. In New York, he pivoted to a quick game, run-heavy attack to hide Daniel Jones' flaws. He is an elite game planner who exploits specific defensive weaknesses. Now, you take both of those systems and you combine them, and what do you get? Well, we have a run-heavy opportunity with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. We have quick game opportunity, especially with explosiveness with Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, out of the backfield. I mean, there's so many things that haven't been done in the screen game, and I don't know why we're not utilizing it. Huge mistake this year, not using the screen game. And that's what Brian Daboll, accentuates in his offense. And then having the deep shots available and being very creative with what he works up on every game plan. I think that his ability is better than what some people are giving him credit to be as an offensive coordinator. There's always risk, right, with every hiring, and he has a bad sideline demeanor. He can be very fiery. It works, probably better for a coordinator than a head coach, though. I think as a head coach, his over-aggressiveness with his players was on display this past season. Can't remember who he got in the face of, but he definitely got in the face of one of his players, and it made national headlines. But as a coordinator, I think you kind of need that. I think you need to be able to be that guy that your head coach can't be, right? Your head coach needs to be cool, calm, collected, under control. Your coordinators can be a little loosey-goosey and a little bit more aggressive. It kind of creates that good cop, bad cop vibe. It absolves Dan Campbell of having to do that. The coordinators can do that, and then they can kind of play off each other. Ideal landing spot for Brian Daboll. Again, I think it's a team that has raw, physically gifted, not only quarterback, but playmakers on the team. Maybe a few players that need some refinement. Maybe even a quarterback that could use a little refinement. Jared Goff's not without flaws. He could definitely use some refinement. The Tennessee Titans and Indianapolis Colts, those kind of came up right away. Obviously, going back with Daniel Jones is not going to work out. But the Tennessee Titans, that could be a great fit for him. Also, the Detroit Lions. I think that we're in that running. Don't even know if we're going to interview him. Maybe there's been conversations already. We'll find out. But I think that he needs a quarterback that has an arm. Jared Goff definitely has an arm. I know some of you don't believe so, but it's been on plenty of display for the last 3.5 seasons. I think that to fully unlock Brian Daboll's playbook, you need to have someone that can get the ball deep. So that's my take on Brian Daboll as a potential game planner, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. We'll be right back. We'll get into the second option right after this. All right, now I'm going to get into the chat and see what you guys think about Brian Daboll. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Eric's not feeling well today, so he's obviously off. Hope he feels better. I know all about it, man. I've been up and down being sick this last, like my voice is not right today. Just feel it. Don't feel it. Don't feel good. And then I did the dumb thing, man. Last night I'm making these funeral potatoes that I made for the ladies at the hospital, or I'm sorry, for their Christmas party. And they were great. It was a smashing hit. I've never made them that way before. So I tried making them again yesterday. I couldn't find the recipe that I used. I thought I wrote it down. I guess I didn't. But I do everything like being a former chef, executive chef. I don't use recipes. You just kind of know what works. But in this case, like this is very specific, and you can screw it up. I think I screwed it up. I think I put too much milk in it. And so at 4:30 this morning, I go to check the potatoes as I'm getting up for the day, and I take a spoonful and I go to taste it, and it was so hot. Like, I didn't expect it to be that hot. I think I burned my throat. It was that hot. So you can imagine me dancing around the kitchen at 4:30 in the morning with my throat on fire. Not great. And then what did I do? I grabbed my hot coffee to make it all better. No, it was not better. It was worse. So that's how my morning got kicked off. So Eric, I hope you're feeling okay today, man. Can't be much worse than what I did today. Can't be much worse. My God, man. What a morning. All right, what do you guys think about Daboll here? Let me wind back into the chat. Let me do this. We'll do a poll. We'll take this Q&A down. And we'll do a quick poll. I don't know how many people we have in this morning, but does Brian Daboll excite you? How about that? Well, we'll use that term for everybody today. Does Brian Daboll excite you? Does Stefanski excite you? We'll get into all of them, but does Brian Daboll excite you as the next OC? Yes or no? Vote it up now. We'll leave it up until we get through the next guy. Let's see here. Brian Brady says it would be an utter failure to hire someone without experience. It would be a failure to players' total disrespect. Okay, let me ask you a question on that. How much experience did Ben Johnson have as an offensive coordinator? Do you know the answer? 0. None. Zip. Zilch. He had 0 experience as an NFL or college coordinator of an offense. Sometimes it's not about having experience, because you gain experience in everything that you do. Right? You gain experience in every position that you're in. And you know, here's a separator, right? The guys that know what they want to be, know what they want to become, and they put themselves on a trajectory to be successful. For instance, I want to build big subdivisions, right? I want to do land deals and big subdivisions. So do I just jump into it not knowing anything? Or would I prep, plan, study for years before I ever go out and do something like that? I think the latter. For Ben Johnson, he probably always knew he wanted to be an offensive coordinator. So what did he do? Prepped, planned, built his playbook. When he saw a play on the other side of the field, he's like, I like that. I'm going to go watch the film. I'm going to take that. And then he draws it all up, puts it in his playbook, a playbook that, collects a lot of dust for many years because you're not an offensive coordinator, but you continually add sheets to that playbook, and you're adding plays to that playbook, and you're getting layers and layers and layers and layers of nuance. And then when you get your opportunity, it might take you a year to kind of get it, feel it out, see what works, what doesn't. Your grand plans maybe weren't so grand, and then it clicks. And if you did everything right during your prep phase, it may click and do exactly what Ben Johnson did in Detroit. It helps to have really good football players. But for people, players, former players, coaches like David Blough, Kellen Moore, right? These guys didn't just all of a sudden become an offensive coordinator. They were prepping and planning the entire time for their elevation in the league. So I would say that I don't care if you really have quote unquote experience as an OC. I think that when you interview these guys, you know who they are. And we'll find out more about David Blough, but there's a reason why he's being interviewed first. There's a reason why. Came out of left field last night, but there's a reason why. Cruisin says head coaches are going to want another head coaching job, nothing lower on most. Yeah, I would say that a lot of them probably want to be a head coach again or jump to the college ranks to be, the head coach. But there's only so many opportunities, and there are a lot of, people in line for those jobs. So not all of them are going to land on their feet, doing the same thing, having the same opportunity. So far, 74% says Brian Daboll does excite them. Speaking to the experience with Daboll and Dan Campbell, there's that definite relationship there, and I think that they would be great together, on the sideline, and I think it would bring an extra vision on the sideline, help Dan Campbell with some things too, some things that maybe he doesn't see. Joe Gracia says, Will, don't you think that BJ's 4 years with the team helped him? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely. But that didn't help him. It didn't help him like be the OC he is, from the sense that he had experience as a tight ends coach. I mean, I'm kind of maybe contradicting myself a little bit, but let me reframe that. His experience on the Lions team or any team would have given him the same experience, and he would have been prepping and doing the same things that he was doing with the Lions. He never had experience as an offensive coordinator. He never had experience as a head coach. He was an assistant. He just happened to be extremely smart as an assistant and spent a massive amount of years in the league. Matter of fact, let's look him up real quick. So in 2009 is when he got his first shot at coaching. He was a graduate assistant at Boston College. And in 2011, he became the tight ends coach. And then he went to Miami in 2012 as an assistant. So he's just a grunt, right? He's just an offensive assistant, getting coffee, donuts, whatever, writing out plays, playbook, play sheets, call sheets, whatever. And then in 2013, he got an opportunity to be the assistant quarterbacks coach. So still an assistant, not the quarterbacks coach, doing everything the same, right? Doing everything that the quarterbacks coach needs him to do. All the grunt work. And then finally in 2015, he was the tight ends coach. 2016 through 2017, he was the assistant wide receivers coach. Why did he get booted? Why did he get booted in 1 year? From tight ends coach to then knocked back down to assistant wide receivers coach. Was it about progress? Was it about learning multiple positions? Because then the next year after that, or 2 years after that, he became the wide receivers coach in 2018. And then he was the offensive quality control coach for the Detroit Lions in 2019. So he had 1 year as an assistant wide receivers coach, and then 2 years, and then 1 year as a wide receivers coach. And then in 20 through 21, he was the tight ends coach for the Lions. And then in 2021, he was the passing game coordinator as well. And then in 22 to 24, he became the offensive coordinator, and that's it. So you can't say that he had this massive amount of experience. It was all offensive, right? No defensive stuff, all offensive. But if you break this all down, he had 1 year in Boston College as a tight ends coach. He had a second year as a tight ends coach in Miami, 1 year as a wide receivers coach, 2 years as a tight ends coach in Detroit, and that's it. So he had 5 seasons worth of experience as the actual position coach over 12 seasons. 5 out of 12 seasons. The other seasons, he was an assistant. But during that time, he's building the playbook, right? He's hey, I know what I want to be someday. I mean, I'm not gonna hire somebody just because they've never had experience, or not hire somebody because they didn't have any experience as an offensive coordinator. I think it's the sum of their work. And, David Blough was an NFL quarterback. So if anybody knows offense, Ben Johnson was never an NFL quarterback. And it doesn't matter that David Blough was the best, quarterback in the league, because he wasn't. He was far from it. But it's what everyone knew about David Blough that's pretty exciting. So, all right, let's get into the second one. Be right back in 17 seconds.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, the Detroit Lions are on the prowl for the next offensive coordinator. They interviewed David Blough last night, fired Johnny Morton a couple hours prior. The second option here for offensive coordinator is none other than Kevin Stefanski. Now, Kevin Stefanski was just released by the Cleveland Browns on January 5th. He was fired after a 5-12 season. Despite 2 previous Coach of the Year awards, the team cited a lack of sustained progress for Kevin Stefanski. So the question is, can he become the Lions' next offensive coordinator and be successful in Detroit with the established weaponry that the Lions have built? Clearly, John Morton failed, and it's time to give that, offense to somebody that knows what they're doing. Now, the archetype for Kevin Stefanski is the system architect. He comes from Shannon Kubiak wide zone tree, and that does elevate what the Lions are doing. We, consistently in these tight formations, I think that Stefanski would get guys spread out a little bit more. The case to be made for Stefanski is arguably he's probably the safest and most effective play caller available. I mean, obviously his firing was largely attributed to a roster and quarterback situation that spiraled out of control, yet he managed to win 2 Coach of the Year awards with quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and Joe Flacco. And Baker was not the Baker that he is today, back then. So he runs a very quarterback-friendly scheme. It relies on heavy play action, bootlegs, and a disciplined run game. 3 things that the Lions can do. 2 out of the 3 that the Lions do a lot or have the ability to do, which is the disciplined run game and the play action. The bootlegs is something that the Lions have gotten away from. When Jared Goff is, being mobile, right, post snap and getting outside the pocket, he has been at some of his best. And you've seen it in some of the games this season when we're going up against really good defenses that can get pressure very quickly. We did roll him out on some naked boots, and he was highly successful and accurate on those plays. He doesn't have to be extremely fast. He just has to get the ball out in time. But why would he fit in Detroit as an offensive coordinator or as an offensive coordinator at all, period? He simplifies the game. That's what Kevin Stefanski is known for. He simplifies the game for quarterbacks. If a team has a struggling quarterback or even a rookie, Stefanski's system typically provides those easy buttons, right? And it's the defined reads and half-field throws that protect the passer. Now, the good thing about Detroit is we don't have a struggling quarterback or a rookie quarterback. We have a quarterback that is at the top of the league. So Stefanski would automatically be able to come in and know that he has a mastermind behind center that can do whatever it is that he asks him to do. He doesn't have to consistently waste time in teaching and coaching up and fixing things. He can just get in there and get going with Jared Goff. He's the master of the Shanahan-style wide zone offense. So if you look at what the 49ers have been doing for several seasons now, I believe that would be a very similar system that you would see in Detroit. And we have the playmakers to do it. He won the 2 Coach of the Year awards in Cleveland by navigating mostly mediocre quarterback play and leaning on an elite run game, which the Lions have, and play action scheme, which the Lions do more than anybody else. So what we do at our best, that is what Kevin Stefanski loves to do himself. Now, there's always risks and there's strengths with any coach that you're going to bring in. Here's the biggest strength for me. His elite play calling rhythm. This last season, we saw the Detroit Lions fall out of rhythm in just about every game and multiple times throughout the game. That is the biggest killer of an offense and will lose you games more often than not if you can't stay in rhythm. And the offense that the Lions have had over the last few seasons is timing and rhythm efficiency. Kevin Stefanski is exactly that. Elite play calling rhythm. He makes life easy for the quarterback by marrying the run and the pass looks together. If a team wants to establish a physical identity, he's the best hire. And I believe that the Lions love to be physical with the run game up front. They will fix the offensive line. And Jared Goff, I think he's proven it. To those that know football, Jared Goff can do whatever you want him to do besides run a 4.2 40. Now, there's risk. His system requires specific personnel. Is that a risk? Well, right now it would be because we need athletic offensive linemen to fit this scheme. That is what the Lions have prided themselves on over the last few seasons. This year was anything but. Without Frank Ragnow in there, and without the all-pro right guard and Kevin Seitler, we lost a lot of knowledge and ability on the offensive line, and the athleticism of Frank Ragnow as a center to climb up into that second level and to help Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in the run game was sorely missing. But that'll be fixed here in 2026. At least that's my hope. So if that's really all he requires is athletic offensive linemen to coordinate with his system, I think we'll be okay. His best fit, though, could be with a team that needs to fix a broken run game, which we kind of had this year at times. I mean, every other game it seemed to be broken, or protect a limited quarterback. I don't think we have a limited quarterback. You could say that he's limited from a running ability, but everything else Jared Goff can do. Now, the Saints come to mind, the Raiders come to mind, but I am parking the Detroit Lions there as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't end up in Raiders camp this summer. Another ideal landing spot for him could be with a defensive-minded head coach where you really need someone to completely run the offense. Now, Dan Campbell is more offensive-minded, but if we've learned anything about Dan Campbell, I think that he spends equal amount of time. He said as much in both systems, both offense and defense, both rooms. So the Jets could be an option. Even the Bears, if they end up making some changes, could be an option. However, they have their offensive guru already in Ben Johnson, so probably not. And then you think of Dennis Allen. Is Dennis Allen going to move on somewhere? Is he going to be a head coach? If Dennis Allen moves on to become a head coach somewhere, you might see Kevin Stefanski follow him in wherever he goes. So the Raiders are kind of number one on my list. The Lions, probably in that 3, 4, or 5 slot for Kevin Stefanski. I just don't see it happening, but I wouldn't be out on the fact that he is an extremely intelligent offensive coordinator, and he just makes things easy for the quarterback. So that's it for Kevin Stefanski. Will he be the Lions' next offensive coordinator here in 2026? Let me know in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, here's the next one. Let's see what you guys are saying about Kevin Stefanski. The next one is going to be probably Brian Callahan up next. I'm saving Blough till last. Let's see here. Well, I want to go back to a comment. By Sebastian. Where did that comment go? Oh, let's see. Sebastian, where is that comment? Here we go. Kellen Moore and Kevin O'Connell were backup quarterbacks, had zero experience or no experience, and are now good offensive minds. Go figure. Right? Go figure. You don't have to be a former offensive coordinator or head coach to be an offensive mind. You know, often I attribute the depth chart to us never seeing players for who they are. There's so many players that have slipped through the cracks. There's so many players that we've never seen play in the league. And they might have been better than a lot of players that have. And the reason why is the depth chart. You get stuck behind some players. Coaches, GMs, I think a lot of them, the Lions don't fit this mold, but a lot of them will be forced to play their draft picks or the guys that they've spent a lot of money on. The Lions don't do that. They'll put the best player out there, regardless of how much you're getting paid, or regardless of where you were drafted. But a lot of teams will keep guys stuck underneath the depth chart, and they never rise to the top. Same thing happens with coaches, assistants, or personnel coaches that just never get an opportunity. And guys that don't have experience doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to be great. Sometimes it takes a year to learn. It always will. It may not be the most polished thing coming out in your first season, but it shouldn't be bad, with any of these guys. But if you look at what Kellen Moore did in his first year, with the Eagles, I mean, come on. I think that tells you enough about guys like Kellen Moore or David Blough. It's funny how they're former Detroit Lion quarterbacks, right? It's kind of funny. Stuck down the depth chart. But even when they got in, they were not very good on the field. But if you look at Kellen Moore's history, I'll come back to Stefanski in a moment. As his playing career, he was 2 times quarterback of the year in 2010 and 2011. He was 2 times first team All-American in 2009 and 2010. He was a NCAA passer rating leader in 2010. He was an NCAA completion percentage leader in 2011. He was a 2 times WAC offensive player of the year in 2009 and 2010. He was the Midwest offensive player of the year in 2011. He was the WAC freshman of the year in 2008. 2 times first team all WAC in 2009, 2010. First team all Midwest in 2011 and second team all WAC in 2008. Pretty insane, history there in his, college years. Then he moves on to the NFL, where he didn't do squat. I mean, let's just be honest. He didn't do squat. Where is his NFL history here? Detroit Lions 2012 to 2014, and then he went to the Cowboys 2015 to 2017. So 5 seasons in the league as a career backup. And then he entered coaching right away. In 2018, he was a quarterbacks coach for the Cowboys. In 2019 to 2022, immediately thrown into offensive coordinator role. So he had 1 year of coaching as a quarterbacks coach, and then he was thrown into being the offensive coordinator. And remind me here, pretty sure the Dallas Cowboys from 2019 to 2022 had a pretty damn good offense. And then he goes to LA Chargers in 23 as the offensive coordinator. Then he moves on to Philly as the offensive coordinator in 24, wins a Super Bowl with one of the best offenses in the league. I rest my case, Your Honor. You don't have to have experience to be a great offensive coordinator. You just have to have that grit factor, all right? You have to have the innate ability to do things behind the scenes. If you want to be something great in this world, you don't let somebody tell you that you can't be it. You continue to pound until you get your chance, but you got to stay ready, right? You have to have that next man up, mentality, and you have to stay prepared. You have to build your book of business, right? You have to build your book, your playbook, and he did that. And then when he got his opportunity to use it, he was extremely successful. It does help when you go to teams that have good players. So Super Bowl champion, man, after just a couple of seasons of being being an offensive coordinator, it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So Kevin Stefanski, let's end the first one here on Brian Daboll. We were hot and going. We were up to 76%, but it's 54%. Say yes, Brian Daboll does excite you as the next offensive coordinator. 46% say no on 48 votes. Let's throw Kevin Stefanski up there. Does Stefanski excite you as the next OC? Let's see if we can get more than 50 votes on this one. All right, let's wind it back. Kevin Stefanski conversation in here. K-Biz says Stefanski wouldn't be bad. Megan knows ball. I'm not sure what that is. Blough was a journeyman. Yeah, 5 years. 5 years backup. No, actually, I think he played longer than that. Moore was a 5-year backup. What was Blough? 2019. About the same. About the same. 2019 to 2023. So about 5 seasons. Right around the same trajectory as Kellen Moore. MD Gladiator, Blough was super intelligent. Only way he was able to make it in the NFL, he was physically limited, like Kellen Moore or KOC. Yeah. Tom Brady has said this a lot. So if you've listened, I've listened to a lot of Tom Brady stuff over the years. Tom Brady was one of the least gifted athletes to ever don the quarterback position. But he kept working at it and working at it and working at it. And over time, he got his body, in great physical shape. Developed a really good arm, good, quick release, thrived on mechanics and technique versus physical attributes. But it was the neck up, his intelligence. Brady was super intelligent. He could process extremely fast. And I believe all of those intangibles make a great offensive coordinator too. That's why Tom Brady was able to call plays at the, at the line and in the huddle without an offensive coordinator. He could run the offense himself. But when you're an offensive coordinator, here's the one thing that I love about having a former quarterback as an OC, and I doubt anybody has said this yet. Processing ability. When you have to process in under 2-3 seconds, 4 seconds, imagine what that does for you on the sideline when you have to process the next play. You're seeing it as a quarterback. You have to then process it. And he can do that extremely fast. So should we have plays that are late getting in? No, we really shouldn't. And having that quarterback to communication or former quarterback to quarterback communication is key. It is key. And if you remember, Blough was kept around quite a bit simply because he had a good relationship with the quarterbacks. So what he was able to do on the sideline, helping the quarterback win in the game, was vital to what not only the Lions needed, but other teams too. So, let's see here. I liked Stefanski. See, JC says, I like that Stefanski because he didn't give in to the Sanders circus. He eventually just had no other choice. It was a complete circus there, though. It removed Sanders from the equation, right? But the whole quarterback thing going on, that had nothing to do with Stefanski. That was all the head coach and probably the ownership. They really screwed themselves, and it screwed. I bet you Stefanski didn't even want to be part of that anymore. So whether they fired him or it was mutual but not announced as mutual, he wanted to be out of there. I can almost guarantee it. He wanted nothing to do with that whole, like you said, circus. It was a major circus that was going on there. Let's see. Monica Blue says, if they don't get an experienced OC, you can kiss the next season goodbye. Brad and his blue light special cost. Get a cheap coordinator. Dan will be fired next year if they blow another coaching select. Yeah, I doubt it. Highly doubt it. I can tell right away who you listen to, and that tells me everything about what you know. Let's see. MD says Brad doesn't hold the money for coaching contracts. That would be Rod Wood. Exactly. See, it's hilarious to me because there's these people that talk about the Lions and they don't have a clue. I'm not saying you, Monica. They don't have a clue as to what they're talking about. If they're out there saying that Brad's, going to tighten up the purse strings and it's all Brad and Brad failed at this. Look, Dan hires his own staff. So if I haven't heard it, but if anyone out there is saying that it's all Brad's fault, it is not Brad's fault. Dan is in charge of hiring his staff, just like every other head coach in the league. And who does he report to? He reports to Rod Wood and Sheila Hamp. Those are the people that are writing the checks and financially making the decisions on what they can afford. I don't think the Lions have an issue paying people. I don't think they have an issue of paying people what they're worth and what their value is. But it's not Brad's fault. I can tell you that right now. It's definitely not Brad's fault. The hierarchy of what goes on in the league, when you listen to the wrong people, they tell you the wrong things. Oh, yeah, I love it, Trace. Trace says, I love how everyone's got crystal balls and knows the future. Yeah, they don't. They don't. I think, Monica, I've laid a pretty good case out. I don't know how long you've been in this morning, but I think I've laid the pretty good case for not needing offensive coordinator experience. Ben Johnson didn't have it. Kellen Moore didn't have it. You tell me. That's just two examples. I can find plenty more. Ben Johnson had led the best offense in the league. Kellen Moore won a Super Bowl and led some of the best offenses in the league with the Cowboys. He had zero experience before that. The difference is he has experience as a quarterback. That's the difference. There you go, John Rittman. I would too, man. These guys don't care about the money. Why is Belichick still coaching? I'm not sure what you mean with that. I don't even know how Belichick fits into this conversation, to be honest with you. No clue. But let's get into the next one. Let's get into another technical option for the Detroit Lions. We'll be right back here in 17 seconds, and we'll be getting into our third offensive coordinator option for the Detroit Lions.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, up next, your Detroit Lions are looking for the offensive coordinator of the future. Whether that is a coordinator that has experience, which a lot of you are thinking that the Lions must only hire is an offensive coordinator that has experience at offensive coordinator, or it's someone that's never been an offensive coordinator before. Well, we're trying to narrow it down. This is number 3 on today's list, and we're going to go to Brian Callahan. So Brian Callahan was just recently released as the Tennessee Titans head coach. In season, he was fired after a 1-5 start to his second season. He was 4-19 overall as a head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Now, I wouldn't fully blame him for everything that happened in Tennessee. Clearly, when you have young quarterbacks and a complete rebuild happening, you need time. And if, for instance, if the Lions would have given up on Dan Campbell after the 1-6 start in 2022, I think that we probably wouldn't have been to the playoffs still, and we'd still be scraping the bottom of the league. But Sheila held firm, right? And Brad Holmes held firm in their decisions that Dan had to stay. It was never really a conversation. And so I think that when you look at head coaches in the league today, if you don't give them at least 3 seasons and give them the opportunity to bring in the players that they need and the coaches that they need, look, it'll never work out. It'll never work out. But Brian Callahan is now on the street looking for a job, and here's his best fit from my take. A team with an established veteran quarterback makes the most sense who is a pure pocket passer. Well, that just sounds perfect to me with Jared Goff in Detroit. Now, his archetype is a modern drop back specialist. That is what Brian Callahan is known for, is drop back passing. And guess what? That's what Jared Goff does, and does a whole lot. Now, to make the case for Brian Callahan in Detroit, I believe he got a raw deal in Tennessee with a roster that just wasn't ready. Before that, he was instrumental in Joe Burrow's development in Cincinnati. And Burrow's development, I mean, you look at where he is today and where he was when he started and where he was when Callahan left, night and day different. He has worked with elite passers like Peyton Manning and Matthew Stafford. He understands protection schemes and modern route concepts at an elite level. He is also known as a great teacher and technician. And when you think about an offensive coordinator and how valuable they are, obviously, to your team, you need someone that can teach, right? How often do you hear Dan Campbell say they're great teachers? They're great men, but they're great teachers. You have to be able to teach and be a technician, right? You have to be a really good operator at what you do. And Brian Callahan has always been that when he's orchestrated offenses. Now, I think that he fits a little bit better than Stefanski in Detroit, simply because I think Stefanski wants to run the ball a lot more, and we have the ability to be a very balanced offense and not always run heavy. Or you have, Daboll, who is more of the deep attack style of an offensive coordinator. And I think that Callahan kind of fits right in the middle. As that technician, I think he's a little bit more balanced. He's excellent at designing third down concepts. We know that third down has been our Achilles heel this last season, and red zone passing plays. Again, another major issue for the Lions this year. And it hasn't been in seasons past. The 2 areas that we were, generally the best at, red zone, score a lot, third down, either didn't need it or we would complete it. This year, didn't happen. Not to the extent that we have done it in the past, and not to the extent that we needed it to win some of those games. Just a play or two, a game or two away from making the playoffs, winning the North, and it didn't happen because our offensive play calling was horrendous. And third down and red zone are going to be 2 keys that we need to fix here in 2026. He's less of a, Brian Callahan, less of a play caller historically, and more of a teacher and a technician. And I say that because Zach Taylor was really known for calling more of the plays in Cincinnati. It doesn't mean that Callahan can't do it, but this is where I'm going to get into strengths, landing spot, and the risks that come into mind here. Strengths, I think he understands, again, the modern passing concepts and protection schemes better than most. He isn't this rah-rah guy. He's just a strategist. You need someone that can think outside the box, that has good strategy, that has the ability to teach everything that he is trying to do, right? You can't just force everything. You have to make sure the guys understand it at the nuanced level so that they can go and do it and perform it on the field. Ideal landing spots, again, I think it's a veteran quarterback who wants a collaborator, someone that's going to pull the best things out of that quarterback, what he does well, which has been a common theme in Detroit. They've built these offenses around Jared Goff and their playmakers, which is no different than any other offense in the league. Or he maybe would end up on a team that, again, with a defensive-minded coach who needs a smart, non-threatening technician who can manage the passing game. Here's my biggest risk. Johnny Mo number 2. That's kind of what I'm thinking for Brian Callahan. And I say that because he's not known as a play caller. He's a teacher. He's a technician. He's extremely smart. He knows what he's doing. But if you don't have an extreme amount of play calling experience, that's where I'm willing to walk away. At this level, I believe you do have to have some experience in doing it, or you have had to have been a quarterback where you're calling plays every down that you're in the game. So there's the differentiator for me. You may not have offensive coordinator experience, but you were a quarterback. Vice versa, you may not have play calling experience as an offensive coordinator or a head coach. You can teach it, you can design it, you can strategize it, but can you call it? Can you be a mixologist? Can you develop rhythm? And so for that reason, I'm definitely out on Brian Callahan. I think some of the risks of not being a play calling wizard speak the most to me. But his reputation, I think, as a game planner is instrumental. Maybe the Lions bring him in as a consultant, maybe an offensive assistant. That I would be open to. I want his mind in Detroit, just not the offensive coordinator side of it. So that is the third option for the Detroit Lions on their way to finding their next offensive coordinator here in 2026. Leave me your comments below and tell me what you think about Brian Callahan. We'll see you in the next one. All right, we're back. What do you guys think about Brian Callahan? I mean, you heard me. I'm out on the guy. I think it's Johnny Mo number 2. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm walking the line, perfectly this morning as much as I can with differentiating between what an offensive coordinator should be, can be, historically has been, what experience do they have, what don't they have, what are they good at, what are they not good at. Again, I will always tend to want a former quarterback as an offensive coordinator. Always. You may not have been the best quarterback, but if you're extremely smart and you know what you're doing, when you're in the game, you may not have had it physically, but you probably had it mentally. And that's why, what did I say earlier? Those that do, those that don't teach, right? It's kind of what happens. I could, by the way, outsell anybody. Just because I was training people all over the country doesn't mean I couldn't sell, by the way. Make sure that we say that. I earned my way to the top with the Triple Diamond Awards. So no on the Brian Callahan, says Mr. Ovi. Joe Gracia the third says, I like the options and opinions, Will. Well, I want to know yours, Joe. You tell me. John Rittman says, I like Daboll or Blough. All right, well, let's get Brian Callahan up. We didn't get to 50 votes on the next one, but does Stefanski excite you as an offensive coordinator? 58% said yes. I'm surprised. I'll be interested to see what you guys say about Callahan. Every time I hear the word Callahan, it always reminds me of Tommy Boy. I don't know why. Just always reminds me of Tommy Boy. All right, so far, 58% like Stefanski. Where's the other one? Where's the other poll? 54% like Daboll. Oh, this one's hot and heavy on Callahan, man. Already 83% saying no way. Brake pads. There it is. That's why, Art. Callahan brake pads. Cruisin says no. Art Vandalay says, is there anyone out there that has history with Goff besides Blough? Oh, I'm having a brain fart. Who was the other quarterback that we always stuck around with as the backup? It was David Blough and Boy. Yeah, Boy. Is it Boyle? Tim Boyle, was it? Boyle? Yeah, Tim Boyle. I wonder where he's at right now. What he's doing. He was with Tennessee this year. So he's still playing. Practice squad member only in Tennessee this year. That is another option, honestly. Tim Boyle's another guy that extremely smart. Extremely smart. That's another option. He is kind of in that same mold as David Blough. The difference with David Blough is he was at least Blough was the assistant quarterbacks coach in 2024. So he's been on the sideline for, 2 seasons. 2024 and 2025. So the JT Barrett thing in Chicago, yesterday when I was chatting with Raw, I had mentioned, when you leave, especially to Chicago, I'm not having it. For me, it's like, I know that I go tinfoil hat some days, but for me, it's, I don't want a guy that left to go to my rival with the coach that went there, right? Ben Johnson. And then you come back to Detroit. Are you a plant? Are you going to feed stuff to Ben Johnson? That's what I would be worried about as a coach. No way. I would nip that in the bud. I don't want anybody back from Chicago. Now, as far as Blough, I think that's a little bit of a different story, right? I mean, he was with the Lions in 2023, and then he hung it up and ended up taking a coaching position. So he was playing before he went and accepted a coaching position, right? It was totally different to me. Totally different. Do we get a warranty with Callahan? Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, can we get a redo on this last season? What's our return policy? That's hilarious. Nate Sudfeld was the other one that was in Detroit for a while. He's also an extremely smart dude. A lot of quarterbacks have good heads on their shoulders, but it seems like the backups that we always had were highly intelligent in life. All right, let's get into the next one. We'll let Callahan burn for a moment. And Robbie says no to Stefanski, maybe to Daboll. What'd you think about Callahan, Raw? Did you say no to Callahan too? Mark Brunell? If Mark Brunell was an option, like, it's a great thought. If Mark Brunell was an option, why didn't he already step up last year? Maybe he doesn't want to be anything other than a quarterback's coach, which he said as much last year when we were going through this. I remember specifically or vividly that he doesn't want to be a head coach. He doesn't want to be anything other than what he is. And I think there was maybe one area that he would have moved to if he would have taken a different position somewhere, but he's happy in Detroit. Just leave Mark Brunell alone for now. I don't want to disrupt that too much with Jared Goff. Having a quarterback's coach is vital, especially if you have someone that that you get along with and you guys can see the field together. Brady says, great point, Will. Who said it? Who said Mark Brunell? Great idea. Great. I don't know, man. I don't think Mark Brunell, for me, I'd rather leave that alone. You know what I mean? Just let them continue doing what they're doing. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are remembering now with was it with Blough or Boyle that had the wife in the Olympics? I remember that now. I remember watching a video on that. Pretty impressive stuff. What did she do? Was she a bobsledder or something like that? I don't remember. All right, let's get into the next one here. Let's see. I think I have one left. Let's see. We did Stefanski, we did Daboll, we did Callahan. All right, let's get into the next one. Be right back.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, the Detroit Lions are on the prowl searching for that next offensive coordinator, and this is number 4 on the list today. We've already spoken about Brian Daboll, Kevin Stefanski, Brian Callahan. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all 3 of those coaches. Yes or no? Which one do you like more, or do you like none? It helps us to understand what the fans are thinking, right? Who do we want as the next offensive coordinator? What makes sense? Do we need explosive? Do we need balanced? Do we need a little bit of everything? I would say yes, we do. We need it all. But this next guy came out of left field. And matter of fact, he was already in Detroit going through interviews last night. And that is former quarterback and Commanders assistant quarterbacks coach David Blough. Rising star, genius, or gamble? That's some of the biggest questions that are being asked of me today. Let's start out with where he comes from and what he's all about. Who's he trained with? Does he make sense? Well, the archetype is the Sean McVay and the Kellen Moore fast tracker. That's kind of what I see. I see him as an equivalent to both of those. Now, I know that's a lot to say that he could be like a Sean McVay. I see it. It'll take time. But Kellen Moore, more so. I see an exact copy of Kellen Moore coming out with David Blough. The case that is going to be made here for David Blough is that he is currently, now you may not know this, and honestly, I didn't know this until I started doing some research last night. He is currently the hottest young name in NFL coaching circles. Following a trajectory that is almost identical to Kellen Moore, after retiring from playing in 2023, he immediately joined Dan Quinn's staff in Washington as the assistant quarterbacks coach. He had some success very early with Jaden Daniels. They called it the Jaden Daniels effect. Blough was very instrumental in the rapid development of Jaden Daniels, helping him secure Offensive Rookie of the Year honors in 2024. Now, when the quarterbacks coach Tavita Pritchard left for Stanford late in the 2025 season, Blough took on a larger role, and the quarterback play did not drop off. The genius label that Blough gets, well, it's well-deserved. During his playing days, coaches openly raved about his football IQ. Cliff Kingsbury, his offensive coordinator in Washington and former head coach in Arizona, famously said that Blough, quote, knew the offense better than I did, end quote. After being in the building for just 2 weeks, he already had that statement made about him. Now, he is viewed not as a former backup, but is as a former future head coach in the waiting. That's interesting. David Blough is being regarded as one of the most intelligent, genius offensive minds in the league right now, as one of the young up-and-comers with future head coach tendencies. I love it. Keep on telling me more, right? Why does he fit as an offensive coordinator? That's the biggest question to answer. Modern scheme hybrid. I think, is where David Blough is going to go with this. He sits at a very unique intersection of offensive philosophy. He's done what he's done with Jaden Daniels. He's played under Darrell Bevel, the West Coast offense. He's worked and played under Ben Johnson, the modern pro style. He's also coached under Cliff Kingsbury, the air raid system. He likely possesses a playbook that blends the easy buttons, of course, of the air raid with the complex protections of the pro game in Ben Johnson. So what I've been saying all day today is just because he doesn't have exact offensive coordinator experience, he's a former quarterback. And quarterbacks have elite processing ability. And that is exactly what you want on the sideline when your quarterback needs to hear from you and quickly and get the play in, and you've got that communication level that is unique between quarterbacks. His relatability at just 30 years old, he speaks the same language as a modern quarterback. And I believe that's also vital to being able to get the plays called in, right? And the language that you're going to use, he already understands it. Not every offensive coordinator understands all the language. They have to learn it. He understands the mobile quarterback game, right? Having coached Daniels, he understands and played as a pocket passer, so he understands what Jared Goff and his ability is. And I think that it gives him the ability to coach styles effectively. And I use the word styles because he has multiple different styles that he's going to be able to blend, having, again, reviewing Darrell Bevel, West Coast, Ben Johnson, modern pro style, and Cliff Kingsbury, air raid systems together. And by blending those together, I think that's exactly what the Lions need from their next offensive coordinator and their next offense, which will relate very similar to what we're already doing. It's just revamping it just a little bit, adding some new keys and nuances and some new plays to the system. Ideal landing spot, number one, Detroit Lions. Clearly. There's a connection here. He spent years in the Lions locker room, quarterback room with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell loves former players. I do too, who are smart and gritty, which Blough is. With Dan Campbell taking over play calling in 2025, he needs a very bright young mind to build the game plans during the week, a role that David Blough is perfectly suited for. Here's the caveat. You talk about risk and reward. You also talk about Dan Campbell's future as a play caller. What if, because Dan Campbell alluded to this on Monday, what if he doesn't want to give up the play calling in 2026? What if Dan Campbell brings in a David Blough to do exactly what I said? Build the playbook. Build the game plan every single week. And then communicate it to Dan Campbell, obviously with Jared Goff, and Dan Campbell can still call the plays. And then when he's ready to hand it off to David Blough, he can absolutely do so. I think that this is more of a perfect connection than it's not. It doesn't mean that it's going to work out. Doesn't mean that he's going to get hired in Detroit. But when you really start to look at all of this and start blending all of this together, I think it makes way more sense than it doesn't. I compared David Blough to the field in some of the three coaches that we've already spoken about this morning. But I'm just going to talk about two of them, Kevin Stefanski and Brian Daboll. I think a lot of us are already out on Brian Callahan. So I went feature and then name. Here's the feature. Experience. Low. Only 2 years as a coach on the sideline. Kevin Stefanski, 15 plus. Brian Daboll, 20 plus. Here's the feature. Upside. Extreme. I think that David Blough could be the next McVay. Kevin Stefanski is just reliable. His upside is high. I mean, he is what he is at this point in the league. It's not going to get any better, but it can get worse. Same thing for Brian Daboll. His upside is high because he has a ton of experience. But will it get better or will it get worse? It's a 50-50 crapshoot. The next feature would be scheme. Modern hybrid air raid pro style for David Blough. He can blend all three together that he's been learning and played under throughout the last 10 years. Well, with Kevin Stefanski, it's more of that Shanahan wide zone. It fits, but does it totally fit? Or are we going to ask our next offensive coordinator to blend what we're doing already into their playbook, and they may not like that? Brian Daboll has the Erhard-Perkins spread offense, and again, that fits in Detroit, but does it totally fit? Who's best for the position or best going forward? Well, I think it's David Blough. You want somebody young, exciting, nuanced, has learned from multiple venues already, and as a veteran quarterback in the league that has that high processing power, I think this makes the most sense for the Detroit Lions. Final verdict here on David Blough, man. If I'm a general manager and a head coach right now in the league and I'm looking at the potential options for either plug and play, okay, that's Kevin Stefanski and Brian Daboll. They're plug and play offensive coordinators. If you're looking for that next guy to be the genius offensive coordinator that a lot of people have labeled Ben Johnson with, David Blough's your choice. I'd love to know what you think about David Blough in the comments below, and let me know. We'll see you guys in the next one. All right, back. Looks like we just got a new member to the crew here. Jason in Seattle, Washington, 7'9", just joined level 2, the loyalty crew. Appreciate you, buddy. Do me a huge favor. I don't know if you've been with us all morning, but if you send us your email at mailbag@rockdown.com, you will get added with a free subscription, since you're a member, to DetroitFootballJournal.com, where a lot of my draft work will be this season. Of course, we'll have videos here. I know I took a lot of weeks off, well, months off really this year from doing videos, and I will need your help because I'm completely out of the algorithm right now. Once I start doing more videos daily, at least 2, 3, 4 a day, I'll get back into the algorithm soon. It's kind of funny, you go from a video that does over 100,000 views to then 200, 300 views. It's nuts. That's just the way YouTube works. But I didn't stick with it because, of health issues this year, and for better or worse, I'm feeling a little bit better right now. So hopefully that stays. We need it to stay. Anyway, what do you guys think about David Blough now that I've kind of given you my Cliff Notes version of what he can be? I probably should have went into his history a little bit more, which I kind of did it earlier as opposed to during that video segment there. But let me give you his history one more time since we're talking about David Blough. He was a quarterback or backup quarterback in 2019 with the Browns, 2019 to 2021 with the Lions. 22, he was practice squad with the Vikings. 22, he was on the roster with the Cardinals. 23, he was on the practice squad with the Lions. He retired, and then he took a assistant quarterbacks coach position with the Commanders, and then transitioned from there. Look, the guy has it. He has the smarts. And had I not poked around last night, and I did call my guy, and I said, look, man, I got to know, like, what are people saying? What's going on here with David Blough? And what I told you earlier about him being the hottest young name in the league right now, that's an exact quote from him. Hottest young name in the league right now for future offensive coordinator and head coach potential. Could be 2, could be 3 seasons in Detroit, especially with this offense. Hey, if we go win a Super Bowl, he's gone. He'll be moving on right away. I guarantee it. And I think that he would love to come back to a system and coaching staff that is been nice to him, right? Cordial. I think that he has good relationships in the building. And I didn't say that, and I probably should have in the video. If you don't treat your people well, right? If you're a head coach and you don't treat your people well, your players well, they don't want to come back, right? They wouldn't want to come back as a coach either. David Blough was in the house, right? Going through an interview. What does that tell you about Dan Campbell? What does that tell you about the Lions organization? They treat their people well. Players want to play for them. They want to come back. They want to be part of this organization. If we haven't won anything, which we haven't won a Lombardi yet, but our greatest victory right now as Lions fans is watching this organization flourish. I know that we're all caught up with the edge position or the offensive line or the next OC, right? We're out of the playoffs. I get it. We are witnessing an organization that has really turned itself around. That's the biggest victory yet. That is really hard to do. How many players want to go play in Cleveland right now? How many want to go play for Tennessee? Not many. How about the Saints? Not many, right? They want to come to a winner. They want to come to a contender. They want to come to a team that is trying to go somewhere. All right, let's end this one. 46 votes on Brian Callahan. The answer was no. Callahan does not excite you as the next OC. Now I'm really interested in what's about to happen with David Blough. Why won't it let me end the poll? There it goes. Now it's early. I know that we're going to have all of those feel-good feelings, right? And, you know, I could probably sell you pretty good on some of these guys, but I'm not pushing a narrative. If you notice, my video segments all pretty much stay the same. I have a little bit more in the tank for David Blough personally. But remove me from all of it. I want to know what you guys think. And the other thing that I should have mentioned, which maybe I'll do another video segment and I'll add it into David Blough, is exactly what your questions were earlier. Great questions. And honestly, I'm glad that you asked them. I'm glad that you made the statements about, well, he doesn't have experience. We need someone with experience. And look, that's valid. It's totally valid to have that concern, because we just had that concern with Johnny Moe that didn't have experience as a play caller. You know what's crazy is none of us, or at least I didn't, knew that until the dude had play calling ripped away from him, and he tells us, I never really had experience as a play caller. What? We're just now finding that out in, what was it, week 6 or 7, whatever it was? Holy cow, that was shocking. That was a huge mistake by Dan Campbell. But again, I will go back to this. We were in the playoffs last year, and everybody else was already securing their next offensive coordinators for the future. This year, we had an opportunity to get out there early and start talking to some people. Totally different. Last year, we didn't know anything was going on, and we didn't know who we were talking to. All of a sudden, Johnny Moe's the OC. This year, Dan Campbell's like, 24-hour season's end. I need a couple of days. Boom. Moe's gone. Blough's in the house. Let's talk. That is a difference maker to me. Dan Campbell had learned a lesson right away. And if you're anything like me, Megan always laughed at me for this, but when I was working for other people, other companies, I would always interview. I would always get headhunted and you know, people wanted to talk to me, and I would say, yeah, why not? I'm not going to guarantee anything, but I would always interview at least once a year, but maybe a couple of times, you know, through my, you know, time with that company. Why? Because I want to know what's out there, right? I want to know if the grass is really greener on the other side, or are they paying more, or what's the culture like? You know, what are the people like? What's the job like? And whenever you're in a sales type, you know, or you know, C-suite type of a job or career, it's always interesting to see what's out there for me. So I always interviewed. I'm saying all that to say this: Dan Campbell should be interviewing people, having conversations, having lunch, having dinner, right, with future opportunities, planting those seeds. Now, I don't know how that mixes with the NFL rules. I know that there's certain things you can and can't do, but I don't think anything restricts you from having dinner and talking ball, right? It's not an interview. It's just dinner. Welcome, Jen, to the Lions Faithful. Just subscribed. Please, again, do me a favor and hit me up at mailbag@rockdown.com. That's the email. You email me. Let me know that you're a member. I'll always cross-reference that. Send me your email, and I'll get you guys signed up with a free subscription to DetroitFootballJournal.com. And that's all the time while you're a member. You'll always have the free subscription. If for some reason you drop your membership, you'll still have your free subscription for the next 6 months, no matter what. Because that's what I'm giving everybody. Everyone before the end of the year got a year. But if you're a member, you get it consistently. I'll need till next week to get all of this done because it's a lot. It's a lot to. We've had a lot of new signups, like tripled the amount of subscribers in the last 3-4 weeks, which is pretty cool for me. Pretty cool for the channel, all because of you. Trust me, Attila, I know the feeling well, man. Being on your own is it's fun. It has its perks, but I kind of miss the office environment. You know, I really do. I was watching this show the other day. It was about this publishing company. I can't remember the name of it. It just popped up. So I watched it for like an hour. And hold on a sec. Anyway, it popped up and I was watching. I'm like, man, the office environment is so different today. It's so different. It kind of makes you miss it. Anyway, what are we thinking about David Blough here for the Lions' next offensive coordinator option? I'm surprised right now we have 82% saying yes. I would have thought that, and this might change by the time all the votes come in, I really thought that because he was not a great quarterback, that you'd probably feel less excited about David Blough. Some smart people in the chat, man. I think you guys know your stuff. Look, Dobson, the word excite, we're just using it for everybody. I had a lack of words this morning to really use. I could have said anything. The goal is, do you want him as the next OC or not? Yes or no? It's that simple. Let's see. Mike P says, I believe David Blough is a fit. He knows his football. He knows the building. His family knows the build and the organization and the inner workings. And he has worked with Goff as a teammate. All great things. Checking off all those boxes. Familiarity with the players, the system, the coaches. Familiarity with the organization, the city, the fans. I think that's really key to start the relationship. But it's more than that. It's deeper than that, right? It's his intelligence level. And when a lot of, former GMs and that are saying that David Blough has this ability to become the next great thing, there's something to that. There's really something to that. There's another name that has not been floated around. How about Dan Orlovsky? Dan Orlovsky in there? Think Dan Orlovsky could be a good play caller? I don't think he'll ever come back to football. Would you want out of bounds Orlovsky in the house? I should just do a funny video about that. I should. And then I'll send it to him on his Twitter. Art says we need an OC who's going to get Monty back into the game plan. But all is mute without a legit O-line. Got to fix that first. 100%. I believe that the O-line will be fixed. I do. I think we have some great options there. I take a high school coach over Dan. Yeah. 2 anti-Lions on ESPN now, says John Rittman. I believe that. Robbie, you said that earlier today? Danny O? Who's Dan's safety? This is just supposed to be funny, Mueller. It's just funny. That's all it is. It's just funny. Definitely not serious. You can't tell the sarcasm. It's total sarcasm. Oh my God, the fan base would completely vanish, probably. Vanish. Oh man, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. All right, what else do we have for the day? Because that's done. We've gone through those. Let me recap again what I started with this morning, which is who was fired, and then I'll check the airwaves here. I might even open the phone lines for just a minute. I'm probably going to go till 10:30 max today. Got started a little bit late. So anyway, the coaches as of this morning that were free: John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, Pete Carroll, Jonathan Gannon, Raheem Morris, Brian Daboll, Brian Callahan. Now, the reason why I have not spoken about some of these coaches is majority of them are defensive coaches in the league. So Raheem Morris, Gannon, Pete Carroll's old. John Harbaugh, he's more defensive minded. So very few head coaches that were more offensive minded coaches. Doesn't mean that they can't be an offensive coordinator. Doesn't mean that at all. It's just they're more defensive minded. So it would be a tougher transition, I think, for what we really need. Coordinators that have been let go that are available: Cliff Kingsbury, offensive minded; Joe Witt, defensive minded; Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator. I'm surprised that Eberflus only got 1 year under all of that turmoil in Dallas. I'm surprised. John Morton, obviously. Steve Wilkes, defensive coordinator for the New York Jets. Shane Bowen, defensive coordinator for the Giants. Chip Kelly, he was let go a long time ago, offensive coordinator for the Raiders. Now, I didn't talk about Chip this morning. I totally should have. Matter of fact, let me see. If I still have my notes. Give me 1 sec. I'll be right back here. Give me 30 seconds. I gotta send an email out real quick.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
All right, we're back. And just so everybody knows, I've been working on new backgrounds, new everything. I got a new camera that I banging my head against every single day. Can't figure everything out. The green screen gets not perfect. I don't know why. $2,500 camera and the green screen doesn't work right. I don't get it. The $200 camera worked better, honestly. whatever, you try to upgrade. It's just something I've got to deal with. So don't get locked in on the looks, because some days the audio's been trashed, the look has been trashed, and that's just not what we do. Normally we're pretty tip top in having things look really good and professional. Just going through transition. Off season's a great time to do things like that, do some minor upgrades, and just takes a little bit of time for me to learn. Oh yeah, copying people's designs, right? That's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's exactly why I, have the website, because I can put all of my receipts up there, which I got to get caught up. I'll probably spend a portion of today getting caught up on a few things. Got to finish the end of the season predictions. I bet you I ended up around 50%, which is not terrible. It's not terrible, but I think we need to blame some of that on the offensive coordinator, man. And then ending the season early. Well, the season got ended early for us. Not to say that we should be perennial, a perennial team in the playoffs, but we should be a perennial team in the playoffs. Honestly, we got the horses to do it, man. All right, so I did find some of my notes here on Chip Kelly. And look, this one, I'll probably do a video later on it. I just want to walk through this. And all of the things that I'm talking about this morning, a lot of this is just notes, but I will put together an article. There'll be another 3-4 articles dropping today. I think 2 dropped yesterday. And so I have 7, 8, 9 articles, whatever it is now, that are going to drop over the next few days. More writing during the season, and I'll turn them into videos as well, so you can get both. Just do me a huge favor, share it with a friend, like and subscribe every morning. I know that a lot of you watch every day that are not in, that are in that have not subscribed, and that would really help us out. So, Chip Kelly he's the mad scientist, man. Is he not? Remember the days back in Oregon? He was just insane. That offense was just nutty. One of the most explosive offenses I've ever seen in college football. His archetype, though, is tempo-based, run game, innovator. In the NFL, in college, it seemed to be more deep threat, air raid style of an offense, but it also required a run game to work, and he always had highly mobile dual threat quarterbacks. His current status right now is the offensive coordinator at Northwestern University. He was hired on December 30th. So just a week ago, 8 days ago, maybe 8 days too early, but then again, maybe it's not. So following the firing from the Raiders in November, he did not wait for the NFL cycle to reset. He accepted the OC job at Northwestern under head coach David Blough to help revitalize the Big Ten offense before their move to the new Ryan Field in 2026. So it was interesting that he didn't want to come back to the NFL. Like, he didn't care about coming back to the NFL. Now, I made a case for why he fits, but he's often misunderstood. And I think that's the biggest thing that he's up against. He's often misunderstood as a spread guy. And it's just not his core anymore. It really isn't. He is one of the most brilliant run game designers in football history. And again, that's what excelled the pass game. And when I think about that in Detroit, I'm like, man, that sounds great. We got 2 of the best running backs in the league. If you can really develop an extremely versatile run game, well, that's just going to open up the pass game for us. But can he develop a brilliant pass game in the NFL? That's the biggest question that I think has gone unanswered for Chip Kelly. Now, our identity is built on running the football, dominating the trenches, and it's 2 of Chip Kelly's prioritizes, I think, above all else, is dominate the trench, get after it on the ground. You have the Penei Sewell effect in this one, because his entire system is predicated on athletic offensive linemen who can move in space, and we are failing at that right now. Tate Ratledge has not proven that he's able to get to the second level. Graham Glasgow's definitely not able to get to the second level. We need a center. Taylor Decker is probably done, but he was pretty mobile as a left tackle when he was healthy. And then the left guard position, like, what are we doing? Is Mahogany it? Is Frazier it? Are we bringing somebody else in? We need guys that can get up to the second level, that can pin, pull. Pulling guards are a big product in Detroit the last few seasons. This season, it disappeared. Didn't see it a whole lot. So we need to get back to that, the pin and pull sweeps and inside zone variations that honestly would turn Penei Sewell into an absolute weapon again on the perimeter. And if we get a Frank Ragnow style of a center, it would be heavily utilized in that system as well. Then you have Jared Goff's comfort, which I think would play a big role in this. Kelly prefers mobile quarterbacks above anything else, and I think that his most efficient NFL season, though, was with Nick Foles. When you really look back, 27 TDs, 2 interceptions in 2013, he knows how to protect a stationary quarterback with unique offensive line formations and utilizing tempo and rhythm and timing, which is what this offense is designed on. It simplifies, the defensive coverages and calls. He forces defenses to show their hand early, which every team has had a problem with Minnesota because they are shifting late, more post-snap than pre-snap. And then you have to diagnose the defense post-snap. Kelly, in what he has designed, tries to get Minnesota to show their hand now. And then I think that helps Jared Goff. If there's one defense that Jared Goff struggles with, it is Minnesota. All the other defenses in the league, I think he's done a fine job with. Dan Campbell connection. This seems like a culture clash. I don't think there's a big connection here. It seems like there's a culture clash. But they share a same philosophy, and that is dictating terms. Campbell wants to bully teams. Kelly wants to exhaust them. Kelly-led offense in Detroit would be a physical nightmare for defenses in the fourth quarter. Dan wants to drag you out to deep water and be the last one swimming. Kelly wants you to be sunk by the third quarter so that you can just do whatever you want in the fourth quarter. I love that idea. And I love that Kelly has that, that shared sentiment of what he wants to do to the opposing team, similar to what Dan Campbell has said. Now, the Northwestern contract situation. I know it's an issue, but he did sign his contract, just a week or so ago. He is technically under contract. However, breaking the contract is standard procedure in modern coaching. We see it happen all the time. Head coaches get released from an NFL team. They get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to go coach somewhere else. It happens every year. The NFL out clause, which is usually in most high-profile college coordinator or head coach contracts, includes very specific language allowing the coach to leave for an NFL play-calling position, offensive coordinator, or a head coaching job with reduced or waived buyout. So he would have to waive most of his buyout or all of it to be able to do that. The question is, how much is he getting paid in Northwestern? And I don't know that I can find that info. But the buyout logistics, even if there is no real specific NFL out, which there should be, the buyout for a coordinator who has been on the job for less than a month is typically a flat fee. So you liquidate all your damages. Given the Lions' resources, they would probably have to pay $1 to $2 million to buy him out of his contract. I don't think Sheila's going to do that. I don't think that she's cheap. And then again, this is not on Brad. This is on Dan and Rod Wood and Sheila and the powers to be in the financial departments to be able to pull something off like this. There's offset language that must be included in every contract, and I think that Kelly is likely still collecting severance from Las Vegas, which means he probably wouldn't really care about any buyout or any pay he didn't get from Northwestern if he really wanted to negotiate and maximize another opportunity in the NFL as an offensive coordinator with Dan Campbell. The schematic breakdown, I think, would be very simple for Detroit. I'm calling it the Motor City Blur. That's what I started writing. The Motor City Blur. Tempo has to be a weapon. Chip Kelly loves tempo. The Lions would move from a kind of a check with me system to cadence to a no huddle operation. We've already heard that Dan Campbell wants to give Jared Goff more leverage at the line of scrimmage. And by doing this style of an offense where you're using tempo and you don't really have to check with me anymore. You're just calling the plays. You're getting up, no huddle. You're going to exhaust that defense. This stops defensive coordinators from substituting sub packages. It's something that I've been asking for all damn season. When you get the guys on defense that you want on the field, trap them. You can't substitute unless we substitute. So you stay on the field, you stay in tempo, you stay at the line, and you go. Right? You can get onto the line without huddling and still call your play. Everybody can look to the side and do the old school, college way where everyone would just kind of stand up and look, get the play, and then go. With hand signals, Jared Goff can call certain things, but you simplify it that way when you have a script, and every team has a script. You know what you're running. You're calling 2, 3, 4 plays, and then you go. You run those 2, 3, 4 plays. The run game would, I think, evolve pretty simply. I think it would evolve. You would see fewer duo concepts, though, and I think that probably you would see fewer power runs and more split zone and wide zone concepts, which I think the Lions do an excellent job with already when they have an offensive line. It utilizes Jahmyr Gibbs' speed off the edge, while David Montgomery would be that sledgehammer on the inside like he has been. Doesn't mean that David can't get outside the tackles. I think he's done well out there too. The screen game. This is where it comes alive for me. We have the guys that can utilize the screen game so good, but it requires an offensive line. They can be very efficient and effective with this screen game, and Kelly is elite with the screen game. Matter of fact, you go back to the Oregon days, you look at what they ran, a lot of screen. But weapons like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Isaac Tisla, Jahmyr Gibbs, all that speed and tenacity and the ability to create space, all of them can, and all of them should. But I really see Jamo and Jahmyr being the primary weapons in the screen game. Why we don't use that more often is beyond me, but I think that Kelly would manufacture easy yards and a lot of yardage by getting the ball out of Goff's hand in under 1.75 seconds and get it into the hands of those guys to go make plays. My verdict, which is still undecided on Kelly, I think if you want to maximize the athletic ability of your offensive line in Jahmyr Gibbs and Jamison Williams, then this is the high risk culture play that you make. Is you go to Chip Kelly. He's an offensive genius. I think we all know that. I don't think that head coaching is his forte, but I think controlling an offense like this would be, I think it'd be a breath of fresh air to him. Honestly, I am fairly doubtful this is going to happen. Fairly doubtful. But it's good to talk about. David Blough is up to 50 votes, 58%. It's coming down. So what do you guys think of Chip Kelly? Let's see, Cruisin says Chip Kelly's air raid offense was pure genius at one point. Yeah, it phased out. Do we think that they moved Panay to the left? I don't, Art. I don't think so. I really don't. I think that when you're settled in at right tackle, now Panay played left tackle in college, and then he was moved to right tackle for the Lions. That was a big move, and he's played well. He is now set and has done everything for 5 seasons now as a right tackle. I think it would be a big undertaking for him to then go back to the left and then refigure out all of his drops, all of his slides, all of his protections, all over again. I'm not saying that he can't go to the left ever or be a spot left tackle starter. I just think you want to bring somebody in that has been in that position. Same thing with Tate Rowledge. Why would you want to convert him to a center? He's never played center. Bring in a center that's played center. Let the guy be a right guard. Don't screw up, the ability to have a high functioning offense, because these guys now have to learn. Time on task is real, and they don't get a ton of snaps, to be honest with you, in practice. I think you just leave it alone. Leave him as a right guard. Get a damn center. Leave Panea at the right. Get yourself a left tackle. Strovey, Chip is a long shot. Yeah, I think so too. All right, so that's the biggest question. Kurt Hartshorn has put out there. I don't know if we have a person within that wants the promotion to OC. The question is, do we even have the personnel within to function as an OC at a high level? I know that Hank Fraley's name came up last year, and he interviewed, and then he came back, and then he got an expanded role. I think, again, it would be a grave mistake to just throw him into offensive coordinator to keep him on the team. I think you need to keep him in his job. If he's going to leave to take a different position somewhere else, you just got to let him go. I know that sucks, but then again, I feel like it's a grave mistake to force people to do things that maybe they're not good at. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't be good at offensive coordinator. Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. But what I am saying is, don't force him into a position or give him a promotion just because you don't want to lose the ability of having him in the room, having him on the team, to have that same relationship with your offensive line. But honestly, he wouldn't really be in that room anymore. You'd have somebody else in that position. Then there's Scotty Montgomery, which we'll talk more about these guys tomorrow. I did a full article on Hank Fraley. I don't know why I just closed my website. I think it's a pretty good read. It got some pretty decent reviews. I think it explains a lot of my feeling. And honestly, if you just read it, you'll be able to you'll get more out of it than me really going into it. But I'll talk about it tomorrow too. Come on, open. There we go. Here you go. Here's another opportunity for you to sign up on the DetroitFootballJournal.com. Hank Fraley. OC. There you go. Someone asked about Kurt. I hear Sharon Moore is looking for a job. Oh. That just clicked. Yeah, I'm good. Dude, that was terrible. That totally just clicked for me. That was wrong. That was just wrong. And you got me to say it. Art Vandalay says, what would give to move up in the draft to get a day one left tackle if nobody slips? Well, I think it's really early. I started going through this yesterday. We started talking about potentials. I went through six. What did I go through? 6 prospects yesterday. Dropped 2 of the articles. I still have more of them, like I said, coming out. I think the opportunity is there for the Lions to get what they need at 17. Now, I've also heard this, and I didn't really comment on it today. I didn't prepare anything, but I'll comment more on it tomorrow. I'm hearing that there's some people that are really upset that the Lions beat the Bears and sacrifice picking at 15 potentially instead of 17. Or even 14 versus 17. Here's the Cliff Notes version of my take. I don't give an F about it because we beat the Bears. That's all that matters. You play to win the game. You don't play for positioning in the draft. If you're not tanking the season to get a top 5 pick, it doesn't matter where you pick. Because if you want a player, you're going to go get the player. All you have to do is make a trade. All right, real quick, since we're getting to the end here, do me a favor, flood the chat right now with topics. Just do all bold if it's a topic you want me to talk about this week or in the coming weeks. What is it that you want to learn the most or have a conversation about the most about your Detroit Lions? Now that we're firmly in the offseason, whether it's draft picks, positions that we should look at, potential trades, players on the team that may not be around. We were going to do that yesterday. We didn't get into it. I'll do that tomorrow. We're going to walk through and or maybe I'll do it yet today or tonight. I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to get back tonight, but let me add this to my list for Wednesday or Thursday. We got trade options. Moving up into the first round. I'll do more work on that. I'll say this: if you really need to get that left tackle, whether it's Caden Proctor, which that's the guy I'm going after, hands down. If you're going after Caden Proctor, and I know a lot of the boards out there, are saying certain things. Those are just boards of top 50 typically. But if you're looking at mock drafts, that's the one thing I forgot to do today. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll show you guys the Mel Kiper or whatever, the Mel Kiper boards from early 2025 draft to April. And you'll see there's a huge change. If the Lions need to get into the top 12, which I started putting that in some of my articles, if they need to get into the top 12, here's what I said. I'll just go to Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese. Here is my crazy prediction, my way too early prediction. I said that Reese may be the 2nd to 5th overall ranked player on many big boards right now, but that doesn't mean he will go number 2 or number 5 overall. In fact, it means nothing at all. It's January 5th. The draft boards will reset 100 times between now and April 24th. The biggest unknown is how many quarterbacks and offensive linemen will be taken in the top 15. Most NFL draft big boards have 2 to 3 offensive linemen and 2 quarterbacks off the board, which means the Lions will have their shot at multiple high-end defensive players in the first round. One of who could be Arvell Reese should Brad Holmes move up to the top 12. My way too early prediction was Brad Holmes trades 2026 first and 2027 future second-round picks to move up to pick number 12 in the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft to select Arvell Reese. I don't know that I'd be happy about that. Honestly, I don't like giving up a second-round pick next year, but then again, Brad will probably give up a 28 first round or second round to move back up. At the end of the day, if he wants a player, he's going to go get him. And moving from 17 to 12 is not as crazy as what you might think. 17 is a really good spot to be at when you're considering trades until you get into the top 10. But it's not like you're picking at the back end of the round. You're in the middle of the round. So your move up potential is greater in the middle of the round than it has been the last few seasons picking at the end of the round. So when a lot of us have said, why is Brad not moving up? What's going on here? Nobody wants to pick at the end of the round, right? They want to be in the middle or further up. And right now the Lions are in prime position to move up at least 5 to 7 spots. I don't think that we're going to have to go into the top 10, but that doesn't mean that Brad won't consider it. But I'll get into more of that this week. I'll talk more about that. Anyway, that's it for today. I appreciate you all for joining me this morning on the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Please don't forget, send me your comments, suggestions, topics, video content that you want done to mailbag@rockdown.com. If you are a member and you would like to be signed up for free on DetroitFootballJournal.com, send me an email with your email, in the subject line, say, I'm a member, Detroit Football Journal, whatever. Or simply just put the word upgrade in the subject and then write your email in the context of the email and whatever else you want to write. And that way I can add you to the email list to get upgraded over the next coming days. So that's it for today. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Man, off season's rocking and rolling. We got playoffs this weekend, and we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow as well. So you guys have a good day. Enjoy it. Be interesting to see what happens over the next 24, 48 hours with the offensive coordinator. Will it move fast? Maybe. We'll find out. We'll see you guys later.
Pressured by Hutchinson.